Hey guys, it's Tams, the Wicked Witch. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. Hi to my new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything that I upload. And also, if you could share me, that really does help as well. And follow me on Instagram. I'll put the details below for that. So today's video, just something a little bit different because I didn't have enough to do a haul at the minute. I'm still waiting for quite a lot of things to come in the post. And I wanted to do a video today. It's Sunday and I wanted to put a video out. So I decided to have a look on my list to see what I had on my list of plans. And I decided to do magic, witchcraft with eggs and some folklore and superstition around eggs and witchcraft, you know, over the years. Because it is a really fun topic. I do love a bit of folklore and some of it is really quite funny. What, you know, people were so adamant about things and their beliefs back then, what could happen. And yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, I just thought I'd do something a little bit different today. So, of course, magic with eggs. If you are going to use eggs for any form of magic, for witchcraft and, you know, in your magics in paganism, you really do need to use, obviously, an egg. There's an egg. These are free range eggs from the co-op, but if you're going to use eggs for divination, it is better to use like fancy free range eggs, perhaps from other types of hens where you get the speckled bits and all that, because obviously with the divination, you know, bits like that, it is easier to have stuff to read, but we're going to get into that. So before we do some ways you can use eggs, let's just have a look at some of the history and the folklore and the tales from old times about eggs and how people believed, you know, what witches did with them. So it was believed that you could never ever leave your eggshells unbroken, and the reason for this is that witches would take the eggshells and they would go to the shoreline or the nearest beach and they would cast out the eggshells and use them as vessels to create the worst storms and kill all the sailors. In King's Lynn in Norfolk, in East Anglia in the UK, there was a witch called Mother Gabley, and this is recorded 1500s or just before. This is all recorded, you know, in their history. Mother Gabley was a well-known witch, practicing witch, and she was said to have caused the deaths of hundreds of sailors in the area there, in the sea, in the ocean area there of King's Lynn, in East Anglia, by casting eggshells and using them as vessels to create the worst storms. And she was known for this, and it's actually in recorded history. So that is really funny, because I actually used to live about 5 or 6 miles away from King's Lynn. I lived in Norfolk for several years, and I just thought that was really sweet and funny, you know, and it was really believed that this would happen. And I think I made a little note, because otherwise I won't remember it. In the 1930s, Elizabeth, I think it was Fleming or Femin, wrote a poem, and the poem says, "Never leave your eggshells unbroken in the cup. Think of the poor sailors and always break them up." And I just thought that was funny. I mean, this was serious. And this wasn't just in England. Irish settlers coming from Ireland to the USA, to America, would obviously travel across in boats, and at the other end, they would smash up all the egg shells and make sure that they were completely crushed up when they got onto dry land. And that was so the fairies that had travelled with them, that were trying to escape, and, you know, like the bad fairy folk, or the fae, the she from Ireland, massive fairy folklore in Ireland, they couldn't travel back. and sail in the eggshells as cups and sail back across the sea, and they would be trapped there and they couldn't go back and cause damage. And that was, yeah, and that was like recorded in history, and this was folklore. I mean, I thought that was really cute, actually. Yeah. In China, the so-called god, I'm gonna hope I pronounce this right, Pangchu or Pangcha, I'm not too sure how you pronounce his name. Apparently they are quite big on the whole egg scene, and it's very important because Pangchu or Pangcha, however you pronounce it, he was actually born, he was a god, he was a deity, he was born in a massive egg. So eggs are really, really like a positive, major, big symbol of, you know, of people who follow or, you know, who believe in that god Pangchu. In the UK, we have, I've got to find it because it's here somewhere. All right, yeah, in the UK, there's so many things. I had to write it all down because I knew I'd forget. In the British Isles, in the UK, one of our superstitions is going back, you know, into the 17 and 1800s, maybe before, that if you put an egg, just a normal egg, not cooked or anything, just an egg in front of your fireplace on a stormy night, it would create the storm to be worse, and the first man that walked through your door would be your true love. He'd be the person you were going to marry. So apparently, in this superstition, in this piece of folklore, those young girls who were looking for love and who wanted to know who their husband to be or lover to be, who it was going to be, that's what they did. They put eggs there, an egg in front of the fire on a really, really bad stormy night, and the first person through the door would be that person. So much superstition with eggshells. There was a really cool one. Oh yeah, in the USA, in America, farmers who had now what do they call it? So they call it a farmer who wants to set his eggs with broody hens, so basically getting the hens to sit on the eggs, they would only do this setup on a full moon, because it was said that if they didn't do it on a full moon, some form of witchcraft, none of the eggs would hatch. And actual farmers were doing this for I'm not going to say centuries, but for a really long time, because of this folklore and this system that they believed in. Witchcraft is such a powerful belief system. So for us pagans who practice witchcraft, it's a way of life, and we don't see it how other people see it. A lot of people who don't understand it, they think, especially with television and films, you know, they think that it's, you know, all awful, and, you know, it can kill people and do all this horrendous stuff, and they don't realise that witchcraft is usually done for good. And yes, of course, it's the intent that you put in that creates the outcome. And yes, sometimes people retaliate and, you know, and have revenge and do things that they shouldn't. And then there's people that are just downright awful and do terrible things, and you could call that black magic. And, you know, do I believe in voodoo and hoodoo? I believe in it all. It's all there. Hoodoo, powerful magic. People have views on that. They are practitioners of hoodoo every day, and voodoo. Other people, oh, voodoo, you know, and a lot of it's because of television. So if you're not pagan and you don't practice witchcraft, you might be watching this thinking, oh my God, eggs. You know, they say that if eggs were thrown at your door by a witch, then that is a form of black magic cast on the family. It's like bringing death or bringing bad luck, you know, if rotten eggs were thrown at you by a witch. These are all things that people had drummed into them. If you buried a rotten egg in the front garden of an enemy, or somebody you hated or you wanted to get back at them, a rotten egg that had gone off or was out of date, if you buried that egg without them knowing, it would cause suffering and bad luck to the family of the garden that you'd put it in. So let's look at some ways that we can use eggs in magic. I just thought I'd, you know, go over a few. Like, I think they're quite sweet. I love Folklore and that. That's brilliant. So obviously witches over the centuries have used eggs for lots of things, and it's recorded. It's not something that's been made up in the 90s or something like that. This goes back, and if you are a hereditary witch, you'll know that you will have had old family towels, and it will be passed down to you, the magic with eggs. And I think the most important one for me is the cascarilla, and I know that I'm not quite saying that right, because I actually think it's cascarilla, and it's kind of Spanish sounding, and I do think actually the word is Spanish, I think, and how they say it. I can't remember what it actually means, but the cascarilla is broken up eggshell powder, and you can also make cascarilla chalk out of the powder, because the powder's like white smashed up chalk ground. So you basically would get, and I think I've done a video on cascarilla powder in the past, maybe, or I've talked about it, definitely. It's potent stuff to use, and you can use it for lots of things, but you basically save your eggshells and then you dry them. So stand them all on a baking tray and poke them in the oven, perhaps not too hot, and it will dry out, and then smash it up, you know, make sure you wash them out and get that film out of them. And then I have actually been lazy and done it and not even washed them, which I know is terrible, but I needed them for something quick. And if you're going to make like you can make house protections with them. You know, when you make your sand and you make your house protections, or graveyard dirt and things like that, sometimes I chuck lots of things in. If I know it's potent, like my graveyard dirt I use from the graveyard, the cemetery that I go to, it is actually a graveyard. It's not just a cemetery, it's actually a proper graveyard. That's really potent stuff, and if you put eggshell cascarilla powder with that, whoo, it's potent. And I use that for house protection. Sometimes I'll mix a sand with it, and it won't hurt the garden. You can go around the whole house with it. You've got bits of eggshell, it's not going to hurt your garden. Literally go around the whole house, and you can mix all sorts of things in with that as well. So that's something that I do use, and that is one of the things that I do use in with my house protections. I have 2 or 3 that I make. I change it up sometimes. I make a sand, I make a dirt, and sometimes the dirt has got cascarilla powder in it. It's great for warding off negative energy, evil. Obviously they used it to ward off evil spirits, but I tend to ward off evil as in burglars and people come into the house to hurt you or anything like that. Negative energy, evil, and evil eye, anything like that. I use it for that. And also a whole egg, and so it's kind of a little bit different to people putting a rotten egg without you knowing in your garden to cause you bad juju. You could put a whole egg in a plant pot or in your garden, it won't hurt out the front, and that brings you good luck, prosperity, fertility, if that's something that you were looking for. It brings good life, good juju, good luck to your home. It wards off negative stuff. It brings in the good, because let's face it, an egg is a little egg is so strong. It's, you know, there's a little chick in there, isn't there? Hen. There's a little chick in there. It's so strong, and it hatches. And that's what it represents. So people use them for fertility. If you put an egg under someone's bed who's trying to get pregnant, if they're struggling, and you put an egg under there, 9 times out of 10 they will get pregnant really fast. So people use them in fertility. I mean, look at Ostara. Obviously the Christians' Easter. Pagans were around a long time before Christianity. They were the first, and it was Ostara. And we celebrated Ostara, and we celebrated fertility and the new life. That's why you've got the hares, Mad at the March hare, because it's, you know, it's the hares were mating. Again, it's eggs and fertility, and that's why people decorate eggs. So I think the first Easter bunny picture, oh my God, it was old, and it was Germany. I think the Easter bunny actually come from Germany. Probably from the Black Hills or something like that. A lot of folklore like that does come from across from Germany, and again, it's old pagan. So yeah, so again, that's with a whole egg. So we got the cascarilla powder we can use. You can make chalk, you can make cascarilla chalk, and you can write. You could write on your back gate, you could draw a pentagram, you could put sigils, you could do your own sigils, you could put messages, you could write things in in the witch's alphabet that were for protection for your home. You could do spells with the chalk. You can do spells with the eggshell powder. If you was doing something horrible to somebody, you could protect yourself with that, and you know, because you were casting something out bad to somebody. So eggs can be used both ways. It's not just all light and love, is it? They can be used for other things. People also used eggs, rotten eggs. Rotten eggs were thrown at witches as a sign of disrespect, to ward off the evil spiritness or the bad spirit of an actual witch, or just bad spirits in general. Bad spirits, so it says, the bad spirits, and I think with this we're not talking about deity or anything in that realm. We're talking about actual spirit world, people who have passed over. Poltergeist energy, poltergeist activity, and if you've got, when you've got poltergeist energy, apparently you can smell rotten egg, or like a sulphur smell of rotten egg. But also using an actual egg and breaking the egg and leaving it broken can actually protect you from spirit world. They don't like the fresh egg, okay? I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that when you get poltergeist activity or bad activity in a property, if you was having a look around an old property, sometimes you'll see people and they get that smell. You know, you've probably seen it on, if you watch ghost hunting shows. I love it, and I like to watch some of the decent ones. A lot of them are full of shit. But, you know, they do get this smell of rotten eggs, and a lot of people have experienced that. But apparently we're using a fresh egg, a fresh free-range egg, and either as a whole egg or breaking the egg and, you know, perhaps having some words with it. People actually use that to ward off bad spirit or negative spirits, actual spirits of people who had died. So that would have come from olden times, because they were terrified, weren't they, of all these different things, the devil. They all believed in the devil and this, that and the other. So obviously I don't believe in the devil myself, but yes, I do believe in the spirit world. Yes, I do believe in poltergeist activity and using an egg in a property that's really got some bad spirits, as in the spirit world. Yeah, using an egg for that. They don't like it. They can't crack it. They can't get through. It does something. I don't know what it does. I don't know why, but apparently, yeah, and that's apparently proven by quite a lot of people who are, you know, who are involved in that kind of thing. So the egg is such a protection for the little chick that's inside it, and it kind of rolls round into witchcraft. And when you think about it, it makes so much sense. So obviously it's used in fertility because it's an egg. It's got a little chick in it, it hatches, or a little baby duck in it, or whatever the egg happens to be that you're using. It's obvious that you would use that. And a rotten egg, either throwing it on someone's doorstep or burying it in a garden, as witches have done, and it's recorded all over hundreds of years, all over the world, this has happened, and oh, this is terrible bad luck if this happens. It makes sense that you're bringing rotten luck because the egg's rotten. And putting an egg under somebody's bed who's desperately trying to have a baby, yeah, it kind of all makes sense, doesn't it? So I absolutely love the little stories of the vessels going out, the little eggshells like little ships, and the fairies wanting to get back to Ireland. The bad fairies went over there to cause aggro and then go back on their little, so they smash them all up so they can't sail back. And people were adamant that this, you know, that this would happen, and they really, I mean, Ireland has got the most amazing fairy and the fae folklore. I absolutely love it. And I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm not an expert on fairy or fae, and I wouldn't mess with it as well because they're very powerful. But I just love some of the folklore, and especially the Irish folklore. It's so interesting. Oh, apparently as well, some people believe, and I think this is UK as well, but in America, I think it was North America, and also Native Americans, they believe that the geodes, those big crystal looking eggs that we buy and bang and they crack open, they've got all the lovely bits in. I had one somewhere, I haven't got one here. It used to be there. They reckon that the geodes are actually thrown at people for being naughty or for doing horrendous things from the gods, and that's how we get geodes, and they're like eggs that the gods have, and that's another superstition. So when you crack it open, it'll either be that you was given it as a gift, or you were given it to be, you know, you were given it because you've done something wrong. And if you crack it open and you're a bad person, you get bad juju from that. And if you're a good person and you get all your lovely crystals inside it, that's because you deserved it. And that's, yeah, you know, this is really, really, really popular. So yeah, a definite top 5 for using eggs in witchcraft. Of course, the cascarilla powder for me is absolutely #1. It's amazing. It's potent for all those things, for negativity. People use it for hexing. People use it in, you know, bad, naughty magic that perhaps they shouldn't be doing, protecting the house from, you know, just using it for chalk, for spells. It's so strong. And mixing it with graveyard dirt and making a nice little mix to go around your property. It can't hurt the floor. The dirt's dirt and the eggshells are, you know, it's a natural thing. It can't hurt you, you know, it can't hurt your land. So absolutely fabulous. So for me, cascarilla powder is the #1 usage, I think. And then again, if you place a fresh free range egg under a bed of somebody who's trying to get pregnant, and I've read so many things where people have done this and it's worked, and that person's been trying for years and stuff like that. So it's very, very strong with that. Again, with Ostara, we decorate the eggs, don't we, to bring in fertility, to celebrate Ostara as a Sabbath on the witch's wheel of the year, on the witch's calendar. So that's a big deal, and there's magic involved with that. Again, it's probably like celebrating life with the eggs. You could put an egg out the front in your own garden in a pot to bring you good luck. You can crack an egg to prevent bad spirits, and to prevent poltergeist. I don't understand how cracking the fresh egg stops poltergeist activity, because poltergeist activity makes the smell of a bad egg, but there must be something there with the shell, and I think obviously you'd have to say something as well. And there's a lot of information online about that, and I might go and look that up like really in depth, because I found that quite interesting. So yeah, so many things that you can do with eggs and magic. And of course, I forgot this one, sorry, cooking with eggs. If you're not vegan, you can cook, and you can put spells into cooking. Kitchen witches love it. They use spells in their cooking all the time, you know. And in cooking, there's a lot of eggs, isn't there? So you could be putting your eggs into the cooking, and you could be casting a spell in as you're stirring. There's so much you could do with cooking. Now I'm getting excited about that. I'd forgotten that one. I've written it down there as well. Absolutely. Eggs in a bowl by the door to bring in good luck every time somebody, and positive vibes, and good way of life. Eggs in a bowl by the door when people walk in. There is so many things, but yeah, cascarilla powder for me. Cooking, because you're cooking with them, and casting spells as you're cooking, and yeah, there's so many things you can do. Anyway, this was just a little excellent video I thought I'd make. I could have gone on for hours. I could have made so many notes. I probably would have forgot some of it, because you know what I'm like. But yeah, so many things. There's so much history, mythology. I look at mythology as our pagan ancestry and our history, but obviously some people just look at it as mythology. For me, it's all real, and it all happened. And I believe, and I've read as well, so many stories about eggs and how certain gods and goddesses regarding eggs, and maybe I could do a second video on that, because it literally, we would have been here all day with that. But as I say, I mentioned a couple, you know, with the Chinese Panchu being born in an egg, and the gods throwing geodes, which people looked at as gods' eggs, like the gods and the goddesses. It was their version of eggs, and by the time they get to the ground, they're in that crusted, which a geode actually does look a bit like that, doesn't it? And then you bang it open. Yeah, I like all the different stories. If you like this sort of thing, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you've got any ideas about eggs below, because there's so many more I could have come up with. I didn't really have time. It's nearly half an hour. Probably take me a year to download it. So I hope you all have had a nice weekend. The sun's out here in Essex. It's extremely hot. Yeah, I shall be back soon with more videos. I hope you liked it. Give us a comment below. Tell me what you think. See you later on. Ta-ta.